Okay, what's up YouTube? This is J-Man Time, and today I have another rare weapon for you guys today. But not just one rare weapon, several rare weapons. Today's weapons are improvised or homemade machine guns of the Austro-Hungarian Army of the First World War. Now during World War I, the Austro-Hungarian Army began running out of machine guns between the years 1915 and 1916. Now in 1917, Germany did fill in the role by sending some of their own weapons, but in 1915 and 1916, the Austro-Hungarians, or at least some Austro-Hungarian soldiers and divisions, resorted to making their own improvised machine guns. So let's go over some of the homemade machine guns of the Austro-Hungarian Army. Now the first weapon on this list is called the Maliki Model 1915. This was an improvised machine gun that was actually made from a Maliki Model 1888/1890 bolt-action rifle. This weapon is chambered for the 8x50mm Maliki cartridge and was fed by either a 15 to 20 round overhead magazine or overhead feed system. This weapon had a rate of fire of between 200, 250, or 400 rounds per minute, and this weapon was a crank-powered machine gun. Now, this weapon is very similar to the Gardner machine gun, the Italian Gardner machine gun from the 1870s. Both of these weapons were crank-powered, and both of these weapons' rate of fire depended completely on the user's ability to move the crank handle as fast as they could. Now, this weapon is extremely rare. Only a few examples survived the First World War. This version is in the Austrian Museum in Relic. I don't know how you pronounce that. I can't speak Austrian. This weapon is extremely rare. I actually found this weapon on a Russian website dealing with improvised Austro-Hungarian weapons, and it was actually posted by a Russian firearms expert who visited Austria in 2015. Now, I've had these photographs for a while, but I had to wait until I collected more information before I made this video. Now, the next machine gun is another Maliki-based machine gun. This one doesn't have an actual name. It is just called the Maschinengewehrs Project Model 1915, but I'll just call it the Maliki Model 1915, as this machine gun was actually built using components from the Swallows Model 1912 machine gun and components from the Maliki Model 1895 bolt-action rifle. This is an improvised machine gun from 1915. It is chambered for the same 8x50mm Maliki cartridge and was fed by either a 50 to 100 round belt and had a rate of fire of about 300 to 400 rounds per minute. This weapon is very similar to the Japanese Type 89 or Japanese Type 89 machine gun of the Second World War. This machine gun is it's unfinished. The next machine gun is called the Maliki Model 1915-3, or variation number 3. This is an improvised machine gun built from another Maliki Model 1895 bolt-action rifle. This weapon is also chambered for the 8x50mm Maliki. This machine gun here, or this improvised machine gun here, is even stranger. This machine gun has a hopper system, so it takes stripper clips, but it takes the Maliki E-block style stripper clips. This weapon is very similar to the Japanese Type 11 machine gun from the 1920s. Now, for those of you who are fans of Japanese small arms, you may remember the Type 11 was a hopper-fed machine gun used by the Imperial Japanese Army and Naval Marines. That weapon was fed using 10 5-round stripper clips. This weapon here, this Maliki improvised machine gun, is basically the same thing, except it uses the Maliki E-block style stripper clips instead of the Japanese simple stripper clips that were used in the Japanese Arasaka series series of bolt-action rifles. This weapon had a rate of fire of at least 300 to 400 rounds per minute, and it was made not only using Maliki components, but also components from broken machine guns, like broken Swalos machine guns or broken enemy machine guns. So this is the cooler of the improvised machine gun. It also has a water jacket from a Swalos machine gun, or it could be a water jacket from a Maxim machine gun, maybe even a German Maxim. Remember, the Austro-Hungarian Army also used weapons from Germany, like the Maxim or the Maxim Spandau machine guns, which were just copies of the British Maxim, but in the German 7.92 millimeter. So this weapon here uses components from both the Maliki Model 1895 bolt-action rifle and also components from broken machine guns or spare parts from other machine guns to make this improvised machine gun. So this is the most interesting of the weapons on this list, and let's move on to the next one. The next prototype weapon on this list is a pretty strange one. This weapon has a strange sounding name. It's called the Ignaz Chernitzer or Chernitzer. I can't pronounce that because I can't speak Austrian. I don't know who designed this weapon, but this is a improvised machine gun that is made using another Maliki Model 1888/1890 bolt-action rifle. This weapon is chambered for the 8x50 millimeter Maliki also, and is fed by either a 100 to 150 round drum magazine and has a rate of fire of at least 250 to 400 rounds per minute. This weapon is the better of the prototypes. This weapon reminds me of the Austro-Hungarian Hellriegel submachine gun. The Hellriegel was a World War I prototype submachine gun that was designed by the Austro-Hungarian military in 1915 also, which is the same year that this Ignaz improvised machine gun was also designed. I don't know if any of these machine guns were actually used on the front lines. They most likely were. I mean, improvised weapons are usually used on the front lines if they were made on the front lines. All of these weapons were designed by Austrian infantry troops or engineers / welders / mechanics on the front lines during the war. All these machine guns were captured or used on either the Italian front or on the Russian front. In fact, all of these machine guns, these homemade weapons, these homemade machine guns can be found at the Austrian Military Museum. That's where all these photographs come from. These photographs actually come from a traveler's website that links to that museum. So these weapons are pretty interesting. I mean, these are improvised machine guns that are made from bolt-action rifles or components from bolt-action rifles. What are your thoughts on these improvised weapons, these improvised machine guns? There are other improvised Austro-Hungarian weapons of the First World War, improvised grenade launchers, rocket launchers, and other weapons. But what do you think of these improvised machine guns, these machine rifles made from old bolt-action rifles or components of bolt-action rifles and other machine guns, whether they be spare parts for the Swalos machine gun or broken components from captured enemy machine guns? But what do you think of these improvised machine guns? Please tell me in the comment section below. And until next time, this was J-Man Time signing off.